So yeah, I think the number one biggest missed opportunity of 6, 7, and some even 8-figure Amazon sellers is not knowing your numbers.
Pull out my magic sheet of questions here. All right, so for everyone that's in the audience that might not be familiar with you three, let's go around the table and just briefly introduce who you are and what your business is. Patrick or Nate, would you like to begin?
Oh yeah,
of
you course.
Guys got mics, cool.
So yeah, my name is Patrick. I come from China. Essentially, we started out about 8 years ago, initially as an Amazon seller. So now we expand to a lot more like marketplaces. So we do have a relatively big team. We have like 1,500 employees, mostly in China, and we also have a couple hundred in India. So over the years, we expand to a lot of different regions in the world, like including South America and also Southeast Asia. Yeah.
Awesome. And Tamas?
Yes, hi, my name is Tamas. I'm coming from Romania. I started selling on Amazon in 2015. Since then, I built multiple 7-figure businesses on and off Amazon. So that is Shopify plus dropshipping. And I decided that this year it will be time to take some chip off the table, and I sold one of my Amazon businesses and took a 7-figure exit.
Awesome. And Nate?
Hey everyone, my name is Nate. I started selling on Amazon in 2014 or 15, and I grew and sold my FBA business in 2017, and was really lucky. I had my sale happened, was with a private buyer, and happened really quickly, and so I was really fortunate to have a great team that helped me get my business ready and able to be sold when we had the opportunity. And so now I've kept my team, and we help other businesses to prepare for and maximize their exits.
Awesome. And all three of you are very far along in the game versus maybe some people in the audience here. And I think it's always useful to look at, what was your humbling experience in this business? What was something that was a failure that you had in e-commerce when you first started on this journey? I think it'd be useful for the crowd to hear. Whoever wants to take it.
I'll go. So yeah. We started selling on Amazon US, and then we're looking to expand into Europe. And we didn't correctly know how to calculate VAT. And so this turned into what was a very expensive learning experience. And so the takeaway is it's really important to know your numbers and really be on top of those things and your profit margin, because otherwise it can be a very expensive lesson.
That is very true. A very expensive lesson.
I have an example too with my first product. So I launched my first product in 2015 January, and it was a selfie stick. Nothing like unusual, general product, knew nothing about the product, only that it has demand. So I went to Alibaba, I ordered 1,000 pieces, I shipped to Amazon, and I sold it within like 2 weeks. I went back to my supplier asking for new inventory, and the first thing I realized is that she couldn't help me. She said that the factory is closed due to Chinese New Year. I knew nothing about Chinese New Year, so you have to take in place that nobody's working for a full month in China during this period. So the second mistake, that was my first mistake. I got my product to Amazon somewhere in March, April. Everything went good. And somewhere in July, a lot of competition came to Amazon, and they just destroyed the market. The selling price back then for my product was $25, and they drew the price down to $14 because everybody was selling the same product. And the second mistake that I did was I didn't differentiate my product. Everybody was selling the same product. The only differentiation that you can do in this market is to decrease the price. So one thing that I can tell you, if you want to go to Amazon, is don't sell general products. Always differentiate your products, improve it, invest in marketing, and you will have a sustainable business.
Yeah, absolutely. Patrick?
Yeah, for us, I think based on my past experience, actually, it is much more like easier to get failure when you try to scale up. Actually, when you are very small, you actually is less likely to I guess fail because you are very careful and you will look at everything. And then when you try to scale up, right? So it is very easy to make some oversimplified assumptions, and people tend to get over optimistic when they get the initial success. So I guess our first setbacks was when we tried to scale up. So initially when we were very small, so we had a lot of successes. So when we look at numbers, I thought, oh, what if I have like 10 times the inventory and 10 times of selections? And then it doesn't work out. So I still remember that I have a lot of shipment. We initially went to the US, and then we encountered a lot of customer clearance problems because we expand to new territory, new categories. So there are a lot of unknown rules regarding each categories when it comes to customer clearance. So I think it's very important not to make these kind of oversimplified assumptions.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about that. Like, they're always thinking about scaling revenue, but they don't think that when you scale, inefficiencies can also scale, all that fun stuff, right?
Right.
So in your opinion, what is the single most important thing right now in the Amazon FBA space that you just aren't hearing anyone talk about right now? Most people aren't even thinking about it.
I guess for us, because we are also looking at interesting FBA business to acquire. So I think we look at, I guess, first the branding and the marketing, and also secondly, we look at the products. So whether it's a generic product or it's really like in-house designed and does carry some value. So I think these two factors we value the most.
Tamas?
Yeah, I would add, so I have the same. One is product selection. It's really important that like you have a really good product, a niche product, or an improved product. And the second thing is that most people are not talking about, or they did in this event, is your customer avatar. So for me, it's really important to know whom I will sell that product. It's really, really important because if you know who's your customer, like who's your target audience is, you can do a better marketing, you can do everything around that.
Awesome, yeah. Nate?
All right. So yeah, I think the number one biggest missed opportunity of 6, 7, and some even 8-figure Amazon sellers is not knowing your numbers. And so this is important for a lot of reasons. One of them is you need to be on top of your financials if you want to be able to exit. It's just you have to have this information there. But then in addition to that, when you know your numbers, that enables you to make way smarter decisions on growing your business. And so some stuff that we see that is, surprisingly uncommon is knowing things like profit per SKU, profit, gross as well as net. Looking at metrics on the SKU level to know, one, if they're profitable and how profitable they are, so that you can then adjust your business accordingly and, market more the ones that are making you money and cut the ones that aren't. And so yeah, really being on top of it and knowing your numbers.
Yeah, I agree with that. Working at EF, I see Amazon FBA businesses come in every single week, and they'll give us their P&L, and we say, we have to build the P&L for you, because like often they don't know their numbers, right? Especially in the lower six-figure businesses or underneath six-figure, they just they're solopreneur, they know marketing, they're not exactly an accountant or anything like that. So that's a super good tip for any aspiring FBA entrepreneurs to know your books. It's such a powerful thing to know. So what sort of team should you have in place if you want to scale your Amazon business and potentially sell it down the road? What does that organization look like for you guys?
I think.
I think a product manager or like anybody responsible for product is definitely very, very important. So actually, like I just mentioned, so it is kind of hard when you scale up how to continue be able to find the product that really sell, or like be able to come up like the niche categories that are more like I guess are easier to be successful. So I think that is a very hard part. So there are many other roles I think that are easier to I would say duplicate. For example, like I think, for example, marketing, the process, or like even for content writers, right? For designers. So these kind of specialties are easier to find like in the market. But for the product manager, I think it is very hard. And their mistakes can be very huge because they are the people who are responsible for make I guess product selections, and then if you make I guess for example a procurement decision based on their selection, I mean in case that does not pan out, so it is very easy to create a lot of excessive inventories. So for me, I think if we look at a team, so usually the most important positions for Amazon team, so usually it's the product managers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thomas, what about you?
Well, I have a smaller team, not like Patrick. So the most that I had was 16 people. I tend to focus everything in-house for what is important for me. So first of all, when I started Amazon, I was doing everything alone. Customer service, product selection, sourcing, copywriting, and I thought that I'm the best on those positions. Until I hired my first customer service rep, and I realized that she's much better than I am. So right now, if I would build out a team, I would definitely hire somebody for customer service, one person for PPC, or just outsource that to any agency because they know better than you how to do PPC. Product selection and sourcing, that's somebody you need to have a person there. Like, that's gonna take a lot of time. Finding the new products, discussing with suppliers, improving, and shipment. That's for a small team, and after that you can diversify and build it up. But these are the core people. And one more person, copywriter. You need somebody for content.
Content's king, right? What about you, Nate?
All right, so I love this question. I love hiring. I love team building. Have been and am super fortunate to have awesome people on my team that have run my Amazon business and now with the new businesses I'm involved with. But on the Amazon businesses, I kind of think there's like three main buckets: supply chain operations, marketing, and finance. And so those are kind of the at a high level, the different categories of how I organize my teams. And then now we'll work with some people that, they could still be doing, 7 figures in sales, but it's run by a single person. And like, that's fine too. I mean, I personally prefer to work with a team, but yeah, still kind of breaking down the tasks and organizing in those three broad buckets of operations, supply chain operations, marketing, and finance.
That's great. A bit of an add-on question for you, Patrick. How did you know when it was the right time to scale? Because you've actually scaled quite far with your team to a very large organization, like I said earlier, one of the biggest e-commerce brands in Asia in terms of your portfolio. How did you know when it was the right time to start building that team to scale?
So I think one most important factor, so before you scale up, is to standardize your process. So it is very important to, so in our case, so we actually, we do hire a lot of engineers to build systems. So we try to build in our process in the system so that, when you scale up, so it has less dependency on the people that you hire. Because like I just mentioned, right? So, there are some some positions and the roles, it is very hard to build in the system. So especially for product team. But other than product team, so we try to build everything so into our system. And then it is much, much easier to scale up.
That's a great answer. I was curious about that because, again, as you scale up, those inefficiencies can become quite big. So if you don't have some system in place, it could be a scary challenge, right?
Yeah.
So what do you guys think? Like as you're building this business, scaling up and growing your team, refining your systems, when is the right time to start thinking about selling this business and making the exit? Like, what's the threshold point where that starts coming onto your radar?
For me, I think definitely when you are growing, like when your business is growing, there is the phase when you have to decide that you want to sell, because nobody wants to buy a business that is not generating profit or is in a decline. Nobody. Or if somebody wants to buy it, you will get a smaller multiplier.
Yeah, definitely a smaller buyer pool for those ones.
Yeah.
Nate?
So the more experienced entrepreneurs that I meet and talk and work with, the experienced entrepreneurs, they think about and start to plan for their exit from day one. And a lot of times, like that could mean as simple as just like being organized and on top of your financials, getting your systems and processes in place and documented, because those are the things that you need to have in place to enable you to exit down the road, whether you want to or not. And so better to get in front of those when you're starting, as opposed to having to backtrack when you want to sell and then you need to redo and clean up all this stuff from the past. But then from a more, I guess like from a valuation standpoint, I mean, Greg can kind of comment more on this, but depending on the size of the business, if like larger businesses, so like 7 figures plus, are probably going to look at the trailing 12 months of profit is what is going to determine your sale price. And so from that standpoint, really being intentional about your expenses and what you're spending money on and where you can cut expenses and not overspend in the last year to be able to give you the maximum sale price.
Just one thing to add on to that, I agree with you, but one thing I've seen sellers do is, especially when they're getting close to selling, they think, oh, I got to cut all these expenses, raise up my valuation, all this stuff, but they forget that sometimes you shouldn't cut that team member or that process or whatever, because it makes your business more attractive, right? So you have your valuation, then what makes your business attractive? If you cut your whole team and now you're working 100 hours a week, sure, yeah, your valuation went up, but there's way less buyer interest. So, Patrick?
This is actually a hard question for me because I haven't sold my business yet, and I don't have a plan in the near future. So I guess the first question is whether you want to sell or not, because I guess one need to have a reason to sell the business. I mean, having a business is a good thing because it has this compounding, like effect. So meaning that when you have this business, it keep making money for you, right? So, but if you do decide to sell the business, I think it is wise to sell the business when it grows the fastest, because that gives you like the biggest multiples.
And kind of as following in the same vein with this, like your answer, I'm assuming is going to be a bit different since you're in that position of still deciding. But when Nate, Thomas, when you did decide to start preparing your business for sale, what were some of those roadblocks that you found yourself, hitting, and how did you overcome them?
Well, you wanna?
Sure. So, like I was kind of saying before, my sale was it was really unexpected. We had a private buyer that basically expressed interest in my business, and 3 days later, I was on a plane to go meet with this guy to have the biggest negotiation of my life. That thankfully all went forward smoothly. And yeah, I was really lucky that I had the team in place that had my business organized and on top of the things that needed to be in order to proceed with that, in order to proceed with the eventual exit. And so those things again that I mentioned already, but being on top of having clean and verifiable financials and records, and this is like it's like the boring and unsexy stuff. But these are the things that you have to have in order to, enter and proceed with these, sale conversations. So the finances and then also the operations, the business can't be a freaking mess and totally reliant on you to run, because how is someone going to take that over? And so yeah, those are things now that we see when we work with businesses to, get them cleaned up to be able to be sold. The two biggest roadblocks are going to be incomplete or just incorrect financials and operations that are just really messy that someone else couldn't easily take over and continue to run the business.
Yeah, I totally agree with Nate. My problem before I wanted to sell the business was financials. I had everything in my mind. I knew exactly where I spent the money, how I spent the money, but nothing was written down. No P&L, no nothing. So when I decided that I want to build a business, I needed to go back 5 years and do the P&L and everything, like the bookkeeping and
How much
everything.
fun was that, doing that?
It wasn't fun. I had an Excel file, literally I had an Excel file with all the expenses, so I knew when and how much I spent, only that I needed to prepare a P&L that is attractive to the buyer.
Yeah, I understand that.
And it's a lot of fun.
It's super fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Patrick?
So yeah, I guess we haven't, again, we haven't sold our business, but we did acquire a couple of businesses. So I guess from our experience is the migration experience. So I think it is very important to make sure that you, before you sell the business, right? So it is very important to make sure that everything is in place in terms of documentation and also the process is properly documented. Because otherwise, for the buyer, it is very hard to migrate the business. It's much harder because if you do decide to sell the business, the money that you receive is contingent on how successful the migration is. So the easier you make the migration process is, the more likely that you get, I guess, the money. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of people, they think that making the deal or the negotiations, that's the most important part. But in a lot of ways, it's after the deal is done, when you're handing it over in the migration period, right? You want to make that go as smooth as possible, because if it doesn't, then everything else.
Drop the ball at the finish line.
Yeah, everything else was kind of worth nothing at that point, right? I'd be curious, Patrick, what do you think? Because you're in a unique position with this conglomerate you're growing, where you will have a potential to sell for 8 or 9 figures. Do you think selling a business at that level is different challenges than say at the 6-figure and 7-figure level?
Oh, it is much, much harder. So I guess just for the due diligence, it can take a month, right? So I mean, it is very, I wouldn't say it is typical. It is almost certain that, the other party would hire third-party auditors to, stay your company for months to verify everything, to look at all your process, to do the due diligence, talk to everybody, to talk to the management, right? Your suppliers, etc. To make sure that you have the what is your core competency, and also whether this number is verifiable, and also the financial system, the compliance. So it is a much harder decision. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not as simple as spending the next week putting together this P&L I should have done years ago. Nate and Thomas, your guys' opinion, coming from the side of the 6 and 7 figure, what do you guys see as the difference between 6, 7, 8, and maybe even larger exits?
Yeah. Well, so one thing, I mean, and Patrick touched on it, but generally, the bigger the business and the bigger the transaction, the more on top of your everything that you need to be, the more closely everything's going to be combed through. And so smaller businesses, maybe if it's like a low, mid, 6-figure exit, you're not going to need as long of a financial history. It's not going to be looked at as closely, versus you're getting into mid 7 and 8-figure exits. And also, the buyer profile is going to change a lot. Like the person who's buying a business for a couple $100,000 versus a couple of million versus into the 8 figures, you're getting a lot of these different types of buyers, and generally the ones that are buying the bigger size businesses, you get into 8 figures, you're getting private equity firms where like. This is their business is buying other businesses, so they know what they're doing, they know what to look for. They're gonna push and poke around, and yeah. So again, just like the bigger the business it is, probably the longer the process is gonna take, and the more on top of everything you need to be in terms of the preparation.
I agree with Nate. Nothing to add.
Thank you.
Perfect. So another option that we don't think about, especially in the sub 8-figure space where we're selling 6 and 7-figure businesses, is should we sell out to something like private equity, like your experience has been with Nate in the past, or should we look to go public with a IPO? I think this might be an interesting question for you, Patrick. Like, how do you view and weigh those options? Like, do you see it more valuable selling the company that you build all into just cash buyer or whatever it is, or do you feel going public with the IPO is a stronger factor for you?
Yeah, I think it depends on many factors. So first is there's a big difference between like selling to a third party and going IPO. So one big difference is for after IPO. So it is more likely that you still take the driver's seat. So you manage the company. So after the IPO, the only difference is like you become a public company. So it is easier to attract more investment, and also you have a higher profile. It's easier for the company to, I guess, to negotiate, for example, with the suppliers. But if you sell to a third party, it is very different. So usually it means after migration, so you are not liable for the however the business is after the transaction. So I think it more applies to if, for example, if you are not interested in doing this anymore. So I think this is the biggest difference for these two options. So going IPO, usually it means a new start. So a very, very different phase. So means the company will be under public scrutiny, and also it does require a lot of transparency. So it's not everybody want to be in that position. Yeah.
Maybe you can share. You're telling us. So what multiple do you get if you IPO versus you sell for a private buyer?
Yeah, the valuation certainly would be different. So from what we see, that the multiples for IPOs is tend to be higher than selling to third-party sellers. So and the valuation, the multiples does depend on different financial markets. So for example, in China, so the average PE, the multiples is between 20 to 25. So that's so right now it's higher than a lot of other financial markets. Yeah. So I guess that's not
nice
a difference
multiple.
as well.
Could be worth going through the compliance for.
Yeah, definitely. All right, wrapping it up here a little bit. This is kind of a pointed question, so I'd like to modify this question a bit. But if you were going to use a broker, what would you look for in that broker? Yes, this is the right person for me to sell. And I want to modify that so I don't come off too self-promotional here at EF. But also, what would you look for in a private buyer that would send some trust signals for you if you had decided not to go with a broker?
So yeah, I think choosing a broker it's a big decision, right? I mean, your exit could be the biggest transaction of your career, and it's also really personal. And so because of that, it's so important to go with a broker that you trust. So guys at Empire Flippers, great guys, very trustworthy. There are a lot of really good, trustworthy brokers in the space, but you also have to be careful of some bad actors, honestly, that will not, they'll promise you that they can sell your business at really, really high multiple, and they'll just kind of bait you into that where, one broker will tell you they can sell your business for 5x, and, other brokers will say that they'll sell it for 3x, so then you end up going and choosing the one that tells you 5x, but in reality, they actually can't. They just told you that to get you to sign with them. Then, the business is listed really high, it doesn't sell, time drags on, you get frustrated, and then you end up agreeing to an offer at 2x, when if you would have went with the ones that, they said a lower multiple, but that's also just more, it's reality. And so yeah, it's you got to be, you got to be careful if brokers are, promising you things that seem unusual versus other ones, and so yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Do you two have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely go with the more reputable brokers, because it is very easy. Bigger brokers tend to do a lot of background check before they even take on this deal. So meaning that you can have more trust in these brokers. So in our case, so far we only buy business from Empire Flippers, but I think definitely people will have their own different choice.
Do you have anything else?
No, nothing to add. The only thing that when I sold my business, I also had calls with 5 brokers, and I went with the one that I connected the most. I felt good doing business with that person, and it was a win. You have to understand that brokers, they want to sell your business, but you also have to understand that they are getting a percentage of that business. So as Nate said, lots of brokers are promising you 5, 6 unrealistic multipliers just for you to sign with them, and they know that for 2 months, 3 months, X months, you cannot go to another broker because they will either way get their percentage. So it's really important that you have multiple calls with different brokers, see what each of them are offering, and after that you can make up your mind.
Yeah, it's so much of, I'm on the inside of it, I can tell so much of it is built on trust, relationships, and really nurturing that. So definitely go with who you feel comfortable with. As kind of the final question here, to leave on a relatively aspirational note with all 3 of your success, I know you're looking to potentially exit. You two have exited. So once you sold, what was your plan with the money? What did you guys decide to do with the capital, or what do you plan to do with your next exit?
I'm looking for investments. I'm already invested a large part of my money, which is bringing me a really consistent revenue. Actually, theoretically, right now I'm earning more money than when I sold on Amazon. So I made some good investments, and the long term is to go back and sell on Amazon and do e-commerce, because there's a lot of money. You can make a lot of money, and it's nice.
Sure. Investments always. I'm assuming you're investing into other businesses?
Yes, I'm investing in other businesses. I'm looking to acquire businesses or to partner up with people and grow businesses.
Perfect. Yeah. Nate?
Yeah, so after my sale, I mean, the long answer is like, became a catalyst for the next year of all this like introspection and like existential questioning of what am I good at and what should I do and where do I go and, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I mean, I don't think you ever fully answer those things, but the sale was like a big catalyst for a lot of self-introspection that, still continue to today. And, fast forward a couple of years and I've been really intentional about, what I've gotten into and wanting to do things where I can, put my best talents to good use and have like thought a lot about, and it's really important about doing work that, I enjoy and that I think is important and, how I can help other people. And so yeah, I guess the short answer is take some time and, really, think about it. Like, don't rush into things and, figure out, because take that time and that opportunity that you have to, parlay into whatever you want to do next.
Patrick, what would you do?
I guess very likely we will do investment as well, mostly along the e-commerce line. I mean, in the same ecosystem. So we probably do like, for example, logistics, and also some service like around the e-commerce ecosystem, and also. For example, there have been a lot of service providers for cross-border e-commerce, right? So we are very interested in this area as well.
Awesome. Oh, that's all the time we have. The time's up. A lot of wisdom here on this stage. Please give a round of applause for all three of them.